Welcome everyone to the February 7th, 2022 meeting of the Human Services Committee. We have a quorum, so we're ready to get started. Do we need a motion to suspend the rules to meet virtually? Question.
Do we move suspension of the, if we do or we don't, we'll just do it. I'll move suspension of the rules to meet virtually today.
Thank you.
In accordance with the governor's OMA directives.
Great. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I guess a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming, Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Okay, and then our first order of business is approval of the minutes of our meeting of November 1st, 2021. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move approval of the minutes from our last Human Services meeting.
Thank you. And a second, please. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to second that, please?
Second. This is Bobby. Second. Councilmember.
Great, thank you. And a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming, Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. And now we're ready for public comment. Do we have members of the public who have signed up to give us some comments?
I do not believe there are any, but I'm going to double check.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rebel, I do not see any public comment posts for services.
Okay, all right, then we'll move on to our agenda. And the first item is a review of the Evanston Police Complaints and Comments Report.
I move, well, I guess I move that we accept and place on file.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, and a second.
Second.
Thank you. So is there any discussion or questions about the report?
Yes, Chair. Is some who this is my first meeting having that I recall having this on the agenda. Who is someone from OPS here, or Chief Eddington?
Councilmember Ravel and Councilmember Reed, my understanding is Chief Eddington and Commander Glue will be joining in just a few minutes here.
Okay.
Can we table this then until they're here? Until they're in, literally for just a few moments until they're here.
I don't think we need to do anything quite so official as tabling it. Can we just move on to the next item, and we'll come back to this when Chief Eddington is with us. So
I think we do need a motion, but I mean, silence is consent, so we'll go hopefully with that.
Thank you. Okay. So the next item is approval of our meeting dates for 2022. You saw the schedule was in the packet, and I guess we need a motion for that.
I'll move approval of the meeting dates for 2022.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. So everybody's okay with all the dates that were listed? It's basically pretty much that first Monday, unless there's a holiday on the Monday.
And I'm sorry, what does it become if there is a holiday on that Monday?
It moves to the Tuesday, right? The day following.
Okay.
It's after the 4th of July and after Labor Day.
Okay.
So then I think we're ready for a roll call on approving the meeting dates for 2022.
Councilmember Braithwaite,
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming, Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then I think while we're waiting for Chief Eddington, we'll go to HS2, which is an update about the Public Works Agency Apprentice Program. Do we have someone who would like to talk with us about that? We had an extensive memo in the packet about that.
I think that should be Daryl. I don't know. I don't see him on the call.
Oh, me either. Oh, good. But Dave,
Yeah, hi. No, Daryl should be doing this, and I just sent him the link, so hopefully he'll be here in a moment as well.
okay.
Sorry, you've kind of confused us. We weren't ready for this early start, so
I see.
I apologize for that.
Okay, okay. Well, I think maybe we will just table this one as well until we have staff with us and move on to victim services presentation.
Yeah, good day, members of the Human Services Committee. Today, we will hear from our human service advocates who are, or formerly known as victim service advocates, to provide a brief update on victim services. So, Ariel or Kelly, you can take it away.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Nelson. I'm one of the victim/human services advocates with the city. I've been worked in this capacity for 8 years now. Ariel and I are going to give you a brief overview of the victim services program. I'll start with a little bit of history. It starts back to the 1960s. At the beginning of the 60s, very little was written about the benefits of victims' rights in crime for victims. But that changed somewhere around 1965 when California passed the first victims' rights law for victim compensation. In 1972, federal law enforcement assistance administered the first funds for 3 victim assistance programs. And in 1975, victims' rights were acknowledged with Victims' Rights Week, which I believe this year is going to be April 24th through the 30th. And in 1976, Evanston Police Department started Victim Services Program. It was one of the first in the country. And in 2018, Victim Services transitioned to the Health and Human Services Department for budgetary reasons. And so I'm just going to give you an overview of what it is we do as advocates on a day-to-day basis. We provide social and advocacy services to crime victims and to witnesses, as well as social services to assistance to residents who are also involved in non-crime situations. I'll give examples of what this is a little bit later on. Currently, our program consists of 2 full-time police social workers. We also work a 24-hour, 365 on-call rotation. We do court advocacy, which consists about 70% of what we do. By court advocacy, I mean we attend court a lot of times in lieu of victims because court cases can drag on for months, if not years. So we go in place of them. We keep them abreast to their court case status and what's happening with it. We also attend court for trial preparation. We help them fill out orders of protection, and we also assist with writing victim impact statements when a case goes to trial and a victim wants to speak about the impact that a crime has had on them. Another major source of our jobs is information and referrals. We field quite a few phone calls and inquiries where people call inquiring about orders of protection, a lot of times, either for themselves or someone that they know. And we also take a lot of questions for people who have family members or people they have concerns about with mental health issues, what to do about, let's say, getting them to the hospital. How do we get them help? How do we get them assessed? So we deal with that a lot as well. And so as far as the crime-related follow-ups, a large part of our job is dealing with domestic battery, domestic assault, where it's a significant other, husband, spouse, making it a threat, battery, sexual assaults, child abuse, assaults, armed robberies, disorderly conduct, telephone harassment, burglaries, and homicides. Now, the non-crime follow-up that we do is for check well-beings. If someone calls the police to say that they're concerned about a neighbor or someone they know, a family member that they haven't heard from, and the police respond and they get there and they feel that that person may be in need of additional services, we will call and follow up to check in and see how they're doing and see if we can assist them in any kind of way. We also do death notifications, where we'll go with the police to a residence to notify someone that their loved one has died. We also follow up with death investigations, fires, missing persons, lost and confused adults. Usually those are seniors. Domestic disturbances. This is also a very big. This is a big part of what we do. It's not necessarily criminal in nature, but if the police are called because a neighbor or a concerned citizen hears people arguing, the police will respond. And we also follow up because domestic violence tends to escalate. And in hopes of preventing that, we engage to see if there's any sort of services that we can refer them to, whether it's for orders of protection or referrals for counseling, emergency shelter, that kind of thing. And we also make a lot of referrals to DCFS for abused children and to Metropolitan Family Services when there are concerns about elderly people or people with disabilities. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ariel Jackson, who is going to go into further detail about our daily duties as advocates.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Ariel Jackson. I'm also an advocate with the city. I work alongside Kelly. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Sure.
I know that many of you have gotten copies of the slide, but it, for me, will make it easier to.
We have not gotten, if someone can send those copies, I'd love that. Or if it's just posted on the city's website after this.
Okay, we can ensure that we get that done. I thought they.
Yeah, I can forward the slides to the committee.
So as Kelly shared, one of the bigger pieces of what we do are domestic related issues. And so that's domestic battery, that's domestic related court advocacy, counseling referral and services like that. And so one of the things we wanted to do was kind of give you guys a drill down view of what we do to make it easier as you're interacting with other members of the community to kind of give them direction when people are referring to us. And so with domestic violence, when there's a domestic violence police report, the police are contacted, a report is generated, and then victim services follows up. And a detective who's dedicated to victim services, domestic violence related crimes is also following up. We work very closely with that department as well. An arrest is made if appropriate or approved by the felony review. And then the advocates go to every set court date on the case. Some cases go on for a year or two. It's very difficult for victims to be able to take off that much time each month related to the case. And so we can go in place of or with the victim so that they're made kept abreast of what's going on with the case. And also the state is aware of where the victim stands in relation to wanting to move forward with the case, what they're comfortable with in terms of disposition and outcomes with the case. And so Kelly mentioned this orders protection, trial prep, and all things in domestic violence related on the victim's behalf are roles that we take on. Okay. I'm not moving.
You might want to hit present mode. If you click either slideshow or file, and then you'll be able to
Slideshow.
start from current slide.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Sex assault. We also, much like domestic violence, we work very closely with victims of sex abuse or sex assault here in the community. And again, we, from the time the call comes in to the police and the police alert our department up until there's a disposition in court or not. All sex assault cases don't result in court proceedings, and for a myriad of reasons, and that's okay. Our goal and focus is making sure that the victim is safe, secure, and supported, and nothing is occurring that the victim isn't comfortable with as it relates to the case and follow-ups. And so medical advocacy, getting follow-up care, post-assault, again, felony review, we assist with the victim recounting the story if necessary. Illinois crime victim compensation. The state of Illinois has a set aside dollars to reimburse people who've been victims of crime, and there's an application process, and we walk them through that to reimburse any sort of out-of-cost issue they have had as a result of the assault. We will coordinate special watches on the home or the place of business, place of work, school, as necessary for the victim. Walk them through the Safe Homes Act if they need to relocate or move. And again, court advocacy and the most important, counseling referrals to ensure that the victim is getting enough support long-term. Many people will refer victims to our department for counseling services, and we do not do long-term counseling because of the type of work with our call-out schedules and our crisis work. We can't, with fidelity, give a week-to-week schedule to victims, and so that's why a lot of our counseling referrals or counseling requests are referred out. Okay. So this is our 24-hour call-out protocol. And I just wanted to give a layout of how it looks. And so the 911 center will place a call to either the director, Ike, or Indira, our manager, and they will call one of us, Kelly or myself. Currently, there are only two of us, but we are in the process of bringing on a third advocate. As it stands now, Kelly and I alternate weeks on call. So there's always someone on call. The week begins on Monday at 4:30 and it resumes the following Monday at 8 a.m. And so, like I said, as it is now, Kelly and I alternate. And so a call comes in, the 911 center will reach out to either Ike or Indira. They then will call us. If they can't reach Ike or Indira, they'll call us directly and will tell us, hey, we got a death notification, we have a fire, whatever the call out is. And we will coordinate with the supervisor, sergeant, a commander. It has to, the call out request has to come from a supervisor from the department, police department. And we get as many details as we can, and then we respond in person to either the scene or the station or the hospital, wherever the victim or victims are gathered. There have been situations where the critical incident was so large that we both have responded. And there's a caveat where although there's one person on call, there have been situations where all hands are on deck. There have been situations where Indira has had to assist as well. All right, these are the types of call outs. So we have sex assault, domestic battery, homicide, attempted homicide, death-related cases. Those are death notifications. Those are suicides. Those are check well-being. I haven't seen my neighbor. Can you come over and check? And neighbor has been discovered that they passed away. So that check well-being call has now turned into a death-related case. And that would, if the neighbor or the family member requests assistance, or the officer assesses that this person is not well enough for them to leave them unassisted, we will be called out and we'll come out in person and work with them through that. And critical incidents, they consist of like an auto accident where there are lots of people involved, or a suicide where there are several witnesses. We're coordinating services for a large number of people. And then again, death-related cases and fire. Most times, the Red Cross coordinates fires or fire-related calls. However, since we've been in COVID, I don't believe they were doing as much in person. And sometimes it's just coordinating with them on the phone while we can get to them faster, we can get to the scene faster, and we can just be the arms and legs to kind of put our resources together to make sure that the family is stable and that there's a plan moving forward to get them, make sure they're housed and that they are clear on a plan of action to get them back to stability. Okay. And so I wanted to give you a few raw numbers. This should say actually 2021 end of year snapshot. Our end of year reports typically aren't done until the very, very end of February, beginning of March. But I wanted to compile a few things just to give you guys a general idea of what our caseload looks like, what our call volume looks like. So though there were, I'll give you an example, 380 domestic disturbances that we responded to. That doesn't mean that there were 380 police reports generated. There probably were many more. But once we went through the report, we contacted the people listed on the report, it may not have necessarily been a true domestic disturbance. So these are 380 domestic disturbances that we responded to, that we did some sort of action on. I think that I tallied, Kelly and I had a combined total of a little over 1,400 cases this year, which is about average for us for each year since it's been the two of us. So again, there are just a few, the higher profile type cases that we respond to, things that probably come across your desk a little more often than not. I wanted to kind of highlight so you kind of see in totality what the numbers kind of look like. And again, these are not disaggregated. These are the numbers that we responded to or had some sort of case note generated about. Okay. Voluntary and involuntary committals, that's another number that stands out in that, Kelly and I work real hard to ensure that there's follow-up care. So though they're being committed to a facility who is going to provide therapy services for whatever reason, the committal was deemed necessary. We're checking in to make sure that there's some sort of connection for follow-up care once the person has returned home.
Can Can I ask one, Chair? Can I ask one quick question about this page?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When you say that this information isn't disaggregated, what do you mean exactly by that?
I mean, like, so what we
Are you saying
typically
this isn't the end of? Go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you answer.
So I'm saying that how we do our end of year, I would have all of the police report calls for service in this category. And then I have the number that we responded to. And then I go back and look at what were the reasons, the difference, the number that's the difference between what we have and the calls for service. What were the reasons for the difference? So there's a small narrative of what that number is, why there weren't any follow-up on our part.
Okay.
So I'm just saying these are just the numbers of the calls that we actually did some action on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
when you see the police department's number, they may have, let's say, they may have 25 robberies, but when we have 18, and that may be because there were several that we weren't able to reach anybody. There was one or two that weren't. Once the detective reached out, it wasn't really a robbery, but I called it in as a robbery because I wanted someone to call me back right away, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just again, these are some that I thought
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, it's very helpful for us to see all the different kinds of situations that you come to help. I mean, it's very impressive.
Thank you. And so I'll leave it on the last screen. I would like to say, and I'm sure Kelly would agree and jump in at any time. I'm thankful that we have leadership that said, I called a meeting and said, hey, I'm noticing you guys are being called out a lot more. I'm noticing that the cases are a lot heavier. And so I think that it's time for us to really sit down and kind of get a third advocate in. The last couple of years have been trying for everyone, but I think that the types of calls that we're getting, the types of call outs that were required, have caused us to kind of really look at how we can serve in a stronger capacity and give a more concentrated support to some of the other calls. And so as a result, we've had to kind of pull back on some other things. We used to respond to every single report where there was a victim listed. So now we have to kind of, because of the volume, we kind of have to look more closely at what actually needs help. So someone who may have called into made a police report. So when I say called in, every time someone calls and requests an officer or officer responds to an address, that is a police report that was generated. So there may have been one that was a criminal trespass to land. Well, there wasn't a crime that was committed, but the victim felt uneasy. That's going to be a call that we'll get to when we can get to, because we've had robbery and vehicular hijackings that have become more prominent, or aggravated robberies with weapons that kind of take precedent. So I'm thankful that we are having active conversation about increasing our advocate number. We were a department of 4 at one point, and over time, we've kind of gotten down to 2. But we're seeing that there's a need, and I appreciate leadership that can say, we didn't have to say anything, but Ike was able to kind of take a look at our call volume and the number of call outs we were getting to say that we need some additional resources. And so when you have community members who are saying, It took me a few days to hear a call back, understand that that's why there's the need for services, and the type of services are changing and require a little more involved advocacy. One homicide typically will go on a course of 3 to 5 years. So long after everyone's, gone back to their routines, Kelly and I are still working with the families to find their new footing and to work through the mechanics of that type of case.
Yeah, I agree. If you'll let me just jump in as well to say, like for instance, I think last year we had 6 homicides. So when you're dealing with something that serious, the type of follow-up needed by an advocate is very intense, especially in those first few days, few weeks afterwards, because there are a lot of calls to family members, people perhaps maybe witnesses. So it takes up a lot of time. So you could have other cases, but those other cases, to an extent, not that they aren't serious or important, but you have to, in a sense, triage and assist the people that need the greatest amount of help sooner. And like Ariel said, I think over the last year, with the number of serious crimes, Ike and Indira saw that we were being stretched thin as a department of 2 people, and recognize that we do need a third person. So that's much appreciated. So that's why it's needed, because when you have more serious cases coming about frequently, it requires a different level of victim advocacy.
Right. Councilmember Reed, do you have some more questions or comments? You have your hand up.
Yeah, I put my hand up a while ago, and I think part of it got answered. I was going to ask the team, looking at all of this, thinking, Jesus Christ, how do 2 folks handle this load? How even, are 3 folks? And so one of my questions was going to be, how many folks do you think we need? Good, we're getting 1 more, but how many do you think we need in order to effectively do this work? Because I distinctly, it was almost traumatic for me watching, even virtually, someone was live streaming when the shooting happened here in Evanston, and the mother and family members arrived on the scene to learn that their son had been killed. It is something I've never personally witnessed in my life. Someone learning that their child had just been killed. And I will never forget the screams that I heard that night. And I just want to know, what will it take to have someone on the scene from the city, who is trained in the manner that you 2 are, to help respond? Because what I did notice in that moment was, our police officers who are doing a tough job, and are in kind of a tense situation and are focused on, the crime element there. It just did not seem from the live stream video that they were well equipped to deal with the trauma in the moment. And I just really want us to be able to, in the same way that we can send armed folks to a situation like that, I want to be able to send folks like yourselves to a situation like that. So just, a dream world, how many folks would it take, do you think it would take to really, handle the load effectively?
So when you saw the live stream, we probably were there, but we don't wear all of the same equipment that police officers do. So many times we blend in. Okay. Like I said, so a little bit of my history, I worked for 7 years in youth services, left, and then came back to victim services. So I first began working with the city back in like 2000. And so victim services, even then, was a department of 2 turned 3 my first year with a director. And then when I returned, it was a Department 2 turned 3 when they hired me. And so 3 seems to be the common number that Victim Services has held. I know that there was typically 3 advocates and an intern. Intern did not do after hours crisis call outs for legal reasons and liability reasons. We do typically have an hour response time. Now, a lot goes into that. Our response time is from the time that we're made aware of the call from Indira. We get to the city, then we get a city vehicle, and then we go to the location. So there's a little bit that goes into that. However, the entire time from the time I get the call at 2 a.m. to the time I'm getting into the city vehicle, I'm in communication with who's at the scene, who's at the station. If there's a number of victims, I'm getting briefed on how many victims there are, constantly making an assessment if there needs to be an additional advocate called out. If there's other entities that need to be brought in, for example, if I'm going to a fire and there are 2 houses involved or there are 7 family members, as I'm coming into the scene, I'm reaching out to the Red Cross, I'm reaching out to Indira. We carry a myriad of resources in our phones because we have to multitask while we're safely getting to the scene. So number one, when you see the officers, we're probably already there, but my goal, so when we're at scenes, the crowd seems the loudest and seems the most disgruntled. My focus is the family first. As long as the family is made aware of what's going on moment to moment, even when it's unpleasant news, that's my priority. The crowd may have questions, the crowd may have concerns, and as we can address those. But the family, that's where our focus and attention has to begin and end.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Fleming, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, so my question had to do with, I'm sorry if you guys said this, I was late, like the referral sources that you have available. So I know you're at the scene, you're doing a lot of stuff, but then, and I think I've talked to you both about this, after the scene and after maybe some time goes away, people still need services that are usually past you all's ability for your own time. And so can you kind of tell us a little bit about the services that you see yourself referring people to a lot and where there are gaps in those services? Because I think we could start thinking about how to spend some of our mental health board funding and other things in that way, so that you're doing the kind of on the scene crisis work, but we know that people have supports they need afterwards. And I know this has come up over the years I've been here with mothers who have unfortunately lost their children to gun violence, not really having, free and long-term supports.
So yeah, that's it there, the long-term supports. So we do connect each family, mothers and siblings and cousins, whoever requests, certainly the immediate family with therapy services. For me, that has even been, and I'm sure Kelly has done this too, asked, what type of insurance do you have? There's insurance. We have a cadre of therapists that we will plug into. Some people are comfortable getting therapy services in town. Some people want to go a little further out. Some people want some place that's closer to their jobs. Telehealth has been huge now, and I think has been very helpful. For some, it's not necessarily finding the service, but they're still paralyzed in the grief. And so even making the calls, trying to find someone who's available is too much. So before we hand off, or we never really in homicide cases, we're speaking specifically, we don't ever just go away because those cases, whether they're solved or not, we're still available to them. We make a concerted effort to connect them directly with services. Here's the number to who you're supposed to call. This is who you're supposed to ask for. Where we find struggle is where there's no health insurance. And so even paying a nominal fee over the span of time that they're going to need those services can provide difficulty for them. And so you say, well, they're only paying $25, but $25 over 2 years is a hardship for a lot of our families. And so that's where we can kind of work to, fill that gap. Family Institute, well, we had the incident at the IHOP on Howard. They entered into just an informal verbal agreement with us that everyone from that incident who needed support therapy services were kind of bumped to the top of their list. And so we were able to get people in. There was no waiting list or anything like that for them. So creating more linkage agreements. It's more difficult, I'm finding now, than it was pre-pandemic. But getting the cost of services, the cost of medication that may be attached to those services covered over a longer period of time has proved to be a hardship.
And then just to follow up with that one, and thinking Dira's on the phone, is that something that we could look at using emergency services for? So I know usually it's like the one lump sum people get for whatever bills or what they have, but I imagine particularly to your point, therapy is going to be emergency service for some people. So maybe that's something we could think about, if people can use that funding for, co-pays for doctor's appointments. I know that we've used it for medication in the past, but, therapy is medication. So I think we should maybe think about how we can expand that cost under emergency services.
Yeah, that's Indira's online. That's it, Indira.
Good evening, everyone. Indira Perkins, Human Services Manager. So many times we have had some crossover between victim services where we've had to utilize some of our emergency assistance funds. Sometimes, people have to take off work and they may need some rental assistance. So we've certainly done that. If Kelly or Ariel call and say, hey, this person really can't afford this, is there any pot of money we can find? We always look under our emergency assistance funding to find that money. We've never really designated a line item for those type of things, but we definitely try and pay for those things if we can.
Oh, great, thank you. Council members, any other, Councilmember Burns, you have a hand up.
Yeah, that was actually my question, because I put in a referral quite some time ago about creating a victim services fund, a set aside just to do that work. And I guess that would come here. So Chair, I guess that's just a question for you, or I thought it was also something that could have came up in the budget conversation, but it didn't. But I'd love to have that discussion.
I remember that you did a referral. We need to put that on an agenda. Ike, do you have a comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone, again. We do have a designated fund, the Human Services Fund, that was established in 2020 for social services. That also includes victim services. This is a dedicated fund that was created to respond to social services and any activities within that. So it's something that we have within the fund, just for your information.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess what I want to get clear is one, do we need more funds in that fund? Do we have one fund that's addressing a variety of issues where it would make sense to split that up in two? I just want to, obviously, and Director Ogba, I reach out to you probably on a weekly basis, but for folks that reach out to me in need of these type of resources. So that's the only reason why I want to provide you, your department, the full support it needs if there's anything additional we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the type of work that we do in social services, funds are always important. It's something that we will definitely welcome. But as it stands, the way that our funds are segmented, they are put into various buckets for various activities. For example, we do have a part just for emergency housing, but of course there's some protocols and policies that we've put in place for that part of money, and any other activity that we have within the department. There's also a designated line number for those who are in need of food and what have you. So these are things that we've created along the way that we've noticed where the needs lie in our community, and we've been able to segment some money and allocate some money towards those purposes. But in terms of seeking funds as it stands, we do have a number of positions that we would still have to fill within that human services fund, not just in the human services department, but we also have community services as well that caters to our youth and young adults. So these are the things that we are keeping in mind. And as Ariel and Kelly alluded to, we are looking for an additional advocate. And that's where that part of money will be coming from when we do find someone suitable for that position.
So just to be clear, as it stands now, where the money, we have enough money in each bucket to take care of our annual needs in each area, as it stands today.
Well, at this point, given that we have a number of vacancies that is dedicated for those positions, we're okay there. As far as activities go, we have put an allocation that we think would be adequate for the entire year, but you just don't know what's going to happen down the line. Right. But so far we are looking good budget-wise, but we just don't know, what the unforeseeable circumstances would be at the middle or the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Obo.
But we are actively recruiting right now for a third victim advocate. Do I understand that correctly?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. We conducted a series of interviews. We just didn't find the right fit for that position. So the position is reversed, and we're hoping that we will find a suitable fit for that unit.
Yeah. Well, Kelly and Ariel, we really appreciate your being with us this evening to share all the amazing and important work that the two of you are doing for our residents, and we look forward to your having a third associate to help you with this important work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you very much for having us and for your interest in our program. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I believe we have Chief Eddington with us now, so we can go back to a couple of our police issues. We had we had the review of the police complaints and comments report, and so Councilmember Reed, did you have a question about that?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Chief Eddington, and I'm sorry, was that Commander Glue that you said? Is that who you said our other?
Yes, it's Chief Eddington and Commander Glue.
Okay, yes. Commander Glue, are you with OPS now? Is that your new?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I do recall. Okay, great. Well, congratulations on that, I think, relatively new position, if I'm not mistaken. So I do have, who's the other OPS officer? My apologies.
Right now, Sergeant Hart, Charlotte Hart, is assigned to OPS.
Okay, thank you. So I'm pulling this back up. So one, this is, there may have been one other complaint register that at least that I recall coming before this committee. I would love to get a copy of the rules and the policy book that all of this is referencing. But in the meantime, I'm curious. For example, is there a discipline that's associated with each of these rules? For example, Rule 1. Is there a category of discipline that's appropriate for a Rule 1 violation versus a Rule 20 violation?
So with a complaint or a DI or any type of internal investigation, wherever it originates, typically rule violations are sustained or not sustained, or if they are sustained, let's take it from there. If they are sustained and warrant discipline, typically it's taken in its totality. There are rule violations that do have prescribed discipline that goes with it, progressive discipline. But typically, in the complaints that you will see, it is based on a totality of the sustained rule violations that determines discipline.
Okay, so it's really left up to the discretion of this superior officer and the chief, as you said, based on the totality of the events. Okay, is there? Okay, that is helpful. And then, is it possible for? Can you share? I don't believe it is here. Am I wrong on that? Is the rule manual within our packet? I don't think I do see it here. So is it possible for you all to share the rules with us? For the next meeting.
For this particular complaint, the first page will have the rules specific to this investigation. And the longer term question is if it's something along the lines you would want to see a policy and rule violation, what our comprehensive list of rule and policy violations could and cannot be our rules, we can get that to you.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, the comprehensive list.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And then lastly, I don't know if this is something for an executive session, but I would want to understand a bit more about this situation, to understand how, if necessary or if possible, if there is a any legislative or policy response that would help avoid something like this in the future. So I just love the opportunity, maybe offline or in some executive session, to discuss that a little bit further with you two, or with OPS. And
yeah, we'd be happy to do that, council member. But I think that one thing that happens in an organization of the size of the Evanston Police Department, when an individual member is disciplined, there's a ripple effect throughout the organization that it's clear that someone has been held to account. So I think there's an informal impact throughout the organization versus the formal impact on the individual officer. With that said, I'd like to go back to one thing you asked. We'll be happy to share with you the rules and regulations and policy manual. But I wanted to forewarn you that our Lexipol policy manual is in excess of 1,000 pages. So we'll get that to you, and that may be something in that time where we can do a one-on-one, where we can guide you to the significant portions of the policy manual that you're most interested in, because it's a rather lengthy document.
And with that, thank you for that. And yes, certainly. How many hours, given that we have a policy manual that is 1,000 pages long, and our officers have to be familiar with essentially every single rule in that document in order to, effectuate, prompt, healthy community service. service to our community. How many hours roughly do officers spend training with specifically the policy manual? And how has that worked into their regular, duties?
I'll start breaking that down. The policy manual from Lexipol was issued several years ago. When that first came out, that full suite of policies, officers had to dedicate a significant amount of time to reviewing and acknowledging those policies, that they understood them and the contents. That would vary from officer to officer as fast as they can or absorb that information. As time goes on, policies are updated, officers are alerted to that, and then again, they need to acknowledge new and updated policies, and that can vary from officer to officer as far as their existing comprehension and how much they understand that topic and how quickly they absorb it. Basically also on a daily basis, each officer is required to be engaged with the manual through test questions or review of a policy. That's almost every day, and I say almost every day, we get 30 of those training bulletins a month, and then some of them are eliminated because they're not applicable necessarily to our policy. So there can be big chunks of time when it first gets issued, smaller chunks of time when policies are updated, and then there's a daily continual engagement with the policy through training bulletins. To go back to something that Chief Eddington hit on earlier with the policy manual, especially Lexipol, when we do turn that over, I would also recommend, he offered sitting down and going through it, because when we pull that manual and turn it over to you, it does not come over in a searchable format. So it is about 1,500 pages that are not easily searchable.
Is that also what the officers have access to a non-searchable document?
So if you are an officer and you are entered in Lexipol and you are a sworn officer and you need to do that, it's a very user-friendly, searchable database. But when the entire policy manual is downloaded and turned over to non-department members,
citizen.
It's long. Yeah.
Do we think that is an issue? That I don't know if that's something we want to have either conversations with Lexipol, or if there's some other version of this company out there that also takes into consideration, the public aspect of policing, and that residents should be able to, access these policies just as easily as officers are, because we have to, again, hold each other accountable. But on any response to that, one thing that I did want to mention is I heard you say that there are regular, almost daily tests that the officers go through. So how formal is that? Are officers required to participate in these daily tests? Are test results then, if they do, it's then a public record. So are those results kept somewhere? And then are we kind of measuring how familiar, on this day with this question, 90 some odd % of the officers in our force, got this correct. And on this day, 70 or 100%, are we measuring this?
So how it's measured is we get a record. I can pull a report that's that will show who and who has not taken their training bulletins. As far as it being recorded, we record that they've done it and they've engaged with it, but that's all that's reported. But we can check and make sure our officers are in compliance and completing these training bulletins. And typically that's done a couple times a month to make sure people are staying current.
But we're not checking if they're getting it right or wrong.
The point of the bulletin is to engage them with the policy itself. So it does not record a right or wrong answer. It records that they've engaged, and they can't continue and complete that until they've been able to answer the question appropriately.
Okay.
Councilmember Reed, may I suggest that maybe you follow up with more of these questions when you have your session looking at the Lexipol document with with Chief Eddington, and because we do need to move along so we can get to our council meeting.
Yes, yes, and I guess also in that session, if there's, yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
And Councilmember Burns, you have your hand up. Do you have a question as well?
No, I'm sorry. I think that was up from before. I lowered.
Okay, all right. Well, then could I have a motion to accept and place on file the police complaints and comments report?
Councilmember Revelle,
Oh, sorry. Okay, Councilmember Fleming.
sorry, I was trying to work the hand thing.
Yeah.
So I don't have any questions about this complaint itself, but if you can tell me, Commander Glue, like how many we have, because I don't remember the date from this one, like how many we have that are processing and like where we are with that, because I know we haven't met as a committee for a few months and sometimes these things take a while. So if you can just kind of give us a landscape of complaints that you're looking at now.
Sure. Off the top of my head, I'm planning to have, if ever the paperwork is done, we'll have 2 more complaints in front of HSC the next time we meet. We're definitely going to have, plan on having 1, if not 2, go to CPRC next month. And then depending on how fast those go through, they'll be at the HSC meeting after February. So I'm going to say probably we have between what's already completed, passed through CPRC and coming to HSC and what needs to go to CPRC and then come to HSC, I think probably we have 4 or 5 investigations. But I plan on at least 2, if not 3, coming to HSC next month.
Okay, and then just to go back to this one, because I can't remember, I remember the discipline and all that. What was our follow-up with the complainant, and does she feel like, because I know she had another case that this one kind of streamed from. So do we have an idea of like how she feels in terms of, you know, I think she mentioned like safety and just feeling uncomfortable. And so like how she is feeling moving forward, assuming maybe her other case is still pending. Like, did we see if she wanted to speak to victim services? I know it wasn't that intense of an issue, but I just want to be mindful if it was a woman who mentioned feeling uncomfortable in a situation that we offered some support there.
Sure. So I believe her original case, and I would have to get an update, I believe her original, I don't want to say case, but original report that was made was already followed up and disposed of some time ago. I would have to come up with an answer of where that went, I would have to refresh my memory. With regards to this complaint that she made, this CR, I did speak to her last week. She was thankful. She appeared to be, I would say, pretty comfortable. She was also sent her letter notifying her that it was done. The investigation was concluded. So we have sent her letter, and I talked to her on the phone last week, and she was grateful that we followed up and handled it. And I told her what the disposition was, and she seemed fairly confident and comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. And I don't need to know what happened with her regular case. I just didn't know if it was still open or not. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you. So could I have a motion then to accept and place on file the police complaints and comments report?
I move that we accept and place on file the police
report,
commendation, and complaint report. Yes.
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Braithwaite,
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle,
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved. And then Chief Eddington, I think we're also ready to hear a little bit from you about things at the police department.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. This will be a quick overview. I think we'll have more in-depth information to present to you next month, but this is kind of a quick reaction to what I've discovered since I've been back. There are many issues that contribute to morale issues, but many factors in that. But I want to start off with the steps that have been undertaken to address those concerns. And the first thing I want to start with is the 12-hour shift memorandum of understanding. Interim City Manager Gandersky, HR Director Fulara, Corporation Counsel Nick Cummings, the command staff of EPD and the sergeants and police officers, FOP units all contributed to this effort. And the goal of this effort is to improve working conditions as much as we can for the line officers. And it was felt that this 12-hour shift provided us an opportunity to do that. This MOU covers till December of this year. And my perception of this is it's kind of a 12-month shakedown cruise to see if the 12-hour shift can work in an organization as large and complex as the Evanston Police Department. There are many nuances to law enforcement in Cook County that other places that have this 12-hour shift don't deal with. So as we work through there and work through its impact on training, work through the impact of the Safety Act on the training of the police department, we have high hopes that all the main parties will work hard at making this a 12-hour experiment a success. The other thing I want to mention is lateral recruitment. The HR department, Megan Fulara and Casey Solomon, have done exceptional work in speeding up this program. They've been assisted by Deputy Chief Jody Wright. And frankly, this is our best way to address this manpower shortage in the short term. It is, we're taking officers that will have been through basic training, have some experience. It shortens up the FTO program and also subtracts the need to send them to the 12 or 14-week basic training school. So this is a quick way to do it. One of the things that HR has agreed to do, we got this process, is to advertise in 30-day cycles. And so whatever applicants we get in that 30-day cycle, we process those, repost the ad, and do that next group. And so we think we'll have much better success using that system. So we have high hopes for that. I want to revert to now what the problems are. Staffing is a nationwide issue for law enforcement everywhere. And I think that those staffing issues are both a symptom and an effect of the morale-related issues we have here. One of the things that happened is with the vast number of our core personnel are Tier 2 pensioners, which means essentially their pensions are portable to any other Illinois municipality. That means we're in direct competition, what benefits we offer, what salaries we offer, what working conditions we offer. One of the things that that were in this contest for other personnel, Commander Liz Glenn wrote our ad on Blue Line to highlight the things that make Evanston an attractive employer. I think that is very significant because it has a different slant on it than what we would be telling our recruits who have no background. We are short approximately, we're short 22 officers. I asked the Office of Administration to run me a list of personnel who have left between January 2019 and today. We've lost 20 officers to other police departments. And that is telling. And one of the key things about that I want to alert the council to is that these are core personnel with either just out of basic training and less than a year on to 11-year veterans who have elected to leave service with the Evanston Police Department and be employed by another agency. I think it's going to take some additional research on my part to ferret out why that is. I think that promotional opportunities are part of that. I discussed how we might improve that with HR, and we continue to have those discussions. I will also look for other issues that we can address quickly in an effort to reduce the flow of experienced, capable officers out the door. One of the biggest things about this is, especially if you're losing people that have more than 5 years on, we've spent a considerable amount of time and money training them in everything from gun tracing to cell phone decryption or cell phone record analysis. That's hugely expensive to duplicate and will be, frankly, a drain on our resources for the foreseeable future. I realize that you have another meeting to get to. If there's any questions I can field from this information, I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you. And Councilmember Reed, a quick question.
Yeah, just very, it's really just a question for the next meeting. I'd really love to see, as a part of kind of backing up, the need for, the level of policing that we have now, particularly how we're, bringing on filling 22 vacancies. I'd love to see just a comparison of crime rates, let's say between, across a few decades, looking at the 80s, not maybe even going back to the 70s if we haven't gone back that far, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now leading to now, to see how one crime, violent crime in particular has trended, and then what the number of police officers, sworn officers on the Evanston Police Force, how those two lines have correlated with each other over the decades. I would just love to see, and I think it's really relevant to a lot of the stuff we're discussing here.
Council member, I'll make sure that's included in next month's report.
Well, thank you, Chief Eddington, and we'll look forward to in-depth discussion with you at our meeting next month about these issues. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And then Daryl King, I think you're with us now. Would you like to talk to us about the Public Works Agency Apprentice Program update?
Good evening, Chair Revelle, members of the committee, Daryl King, Water Production Bureau Chief, Public Works Agency. So here within the Public Works Agency, we have two apprenticeship programs, one being the water plant operator apprenticeship, which is a one-year apprenticeship, and it began in 2017. And we also have a water worker one apprenticeship. This is a 2-year apprenticeship, and this one began in 2009. So the water plant operator apprenticeship was started as a succession planning tool. Many water plant operators here in Evanston are pretty much at the age and year requirement where they can retire. And as well as across the country, this is something that's going on within the drinking and wastewater industry. And so we started a apprenticeship program in 2017 to train Evanston community members on both sides of our water plant here, in our filtration division where the treatment occurs, as well as our pumping division where the pumping occurs, where the water comes in from the lake after it's been treated, it gets pumped out to the community and businesses, as well as our wholesale customers. And then, and it's 6-month rotations. It's 1-year apprenticeship, 6 months in pumping, 6 months in filtration. And we also have the Water Worker One apprenticeship. That's a 2-year program whereby the apprentices rotate through 4 divisions instead of 2. The filtration division, this is more repair and maintenance, labor type of work, whereas the other apprenticeship, they're learning how to operate the plant. So pumping and filtration, repair and maintenance duties, 6 months in each, and then distribution, water distribution, and our sewer distribution, 6 months in each of those divisions. And so since the apprenticeship inception, roughly about 61% or so of the apprentices have been either hired by Evanston or by other municipalities or utilities. Most recently, which actually just occurred over the past week or two, 1 current apprentice and 2 former apprentices. 2 of them have been recently promoted, and 1 apprentice was just recently hired as a full-time employee, and all of this happened in our water distribution division. We currently are in the process of setting up interviews we need to fill 4 apprenticeship vacancies in our Water Worker 1 apprenticeship program. So we're getting those interviews set up now. We do have 2 vacancies in our water plant operator apprenticeship, and we only do 2 at a time with that. But I'm holding off on advertising and filling those for now until, more information comes with regard to the pandemic. Our water plant operators, I would have to say, are probably the most important positions down here at the utility. And so in an effort to preserve that and protect that position, holding off on that, the goal hopefully is to advertise and do that this year, but we're tracking what happens with the pandemic, and just some benefits that each apprenticeship has is for the water plant operator, their intro to plant work, operator work, approved IEPA classroom coursework at a local community college, basic knowledge to pass the IEPA Class C as in Charlie, water operator exam, and that kind of covers everything from the distribution system to chemical addition, and as well as confined space experience. And that's the water plant operator apprentice in the Water Worker 1. They get an intro to the industry, basic knowledge to pass a Water Worker 1 written test, possession of a CDL license, confined space, and of course both references, even for other opportunities with other utilities, and the apprentices in terms of benefits receive basic health benefits. And so we did have a third apprenticeship within PWA where the apprentice could rotate even through divisions over in public services, so like greenways and streets and those divisions. So that was started in 2016. It was eliminated in 2018 due to budget constraints, but that apprenticeship is coming back around. There were dollars because those were general fund dollars. Those funds have been put back into the 2022 budget request, and so there will be 1 position filled this year for the PWA apprenticeship over in the Public Services Bureau. So that's an update that I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding that.
Yeah, thank you. I do see a few hands. Councilmember Braithwaite.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Ravel. So Daryl, thank you. I'd asked for this, and just for the benefit of, the new council members, a lot of this started back in, I think 2011, 2012, just looking at the complexion of public works overall. And we didn't have many people of color within the department. And the perception was also a lot of the folks were from outside of Evanston, for well-paying positions. And so I'm just really glad to see that the program is going well. I know that Dave's role has changed, but it is something that we continue to pay attention to make sure that each department, when possible, mirrors and looks like our city of Evanston. So thank you for taking a sense of ownership on it. And I was looking forward, when I heard you say that there are vacancies, to be able to share that community-wide. So with all the wonderful work that you're doing, when you're ready to open up those positions, and I hope that it does happen soon, please, forward that to members of council so we can socialize it around town and get you a good quality pool of applicants to choose from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Braithwaite, for that historical perspective. That's helpful. Councilmember Fleming, you have your hand up also.
I do. Thank you, Daryl. One thing, and also to compliment Daryl, is that, I rarely get complaints about the water department, Daryl, so I have to have to give you your praise for that. Also, I know when I spoke to you early on, you were one of the main department heads that looked to hire people who, if they could, had a background, right? Knowing people make mistakes, you were always willing to give people a second chance. So thank you for that. The question I did have that wasn't in the document was, what is the pay now for the positions? Because I know long ago, we talked about maybe trying to increase the pay if possible. And then I know I heard from a few people who just couldn't take it on because at the time there were no medical benefits, but that was several years ago. So can you update us on that?
Yeah, the program starts off, both apprenticeship programs start at $14 an hour. And as they rotate through, by the end of each apprenticeship, they're at $18 an hour. So it's like 6 months at 14. And then if they pass the probationary period, they advance up to 15 or 16. I think it's $16. And then it goes up to $18.
And is it full-time still?
Yes.
Okay, and are we able to offer benefits?
So we offer basic health benefits.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Councilmember Reed, is your hand still up from before, or is that a new?
It is still up, but I do want to take a very quick second to just heap a bit of, this is, I think, my first time. I don't know if we've had the pleasure of meeting in person, Mr. King, but I've heard a lot of all places, heard a lot of great things about you. Really excited that you're in the position, really excited that you're leading on this. And of course, thank you to folks like Alderman Braithwaite and others for, getting the ball rolling years ago. And, folks like Councilmember Burns for, taking up the ball a bit now with some of this related work. But really, thank you, Daryl, for leading on this particular program. And just really glad that we have talent like yours in the city. And I'm also glad to hear what Councilmember Fleming said. So thank you. I think we need to, as a council, make sure that we're praising our good staff and make sure that folks, even in the water department, which is kind of tucked away, know that they're appreciated. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Then if we could just have a quick motion to accept and place on file this program update. Somebody from the
I
committee?
move that we,
I move approval.
I second.
Second.
Okay,
All right.
on a roll call, please.
Okay, Alderman Braithwaite. Councilmember
Aye.
Braithwaite. Councilmember
Aye.
Rivera.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and we do have one more item on our agenda, which is general assistance update, and this is for action as well. Is that going to be?
Good day. Good day again.
Is it
members
possible
of-
for us to table this to the next meeting? Because this may be something to have a discussion about,
Sure.
if it
Yeah,
doesn't feel urgent to the other council members.
would that be okay, Indira?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, well, we will be sure to have it on our agenda at our meeting next month. So thank you.
Hopefully we can put it at the top so she doesn't have to wait.
Sure, exactly. We can try to do that. Okay. Well, then I believe we're ready to adjourn, and city council meeting will start at 6:30. So a 5-minute break.